pay.
All right, welcome everybody to the first episode of the Jake Fletcher Show. I'm Jake Fletcher. This is my new podcast that I'm starting, and it's going to be revolving around the topics of real estate as a broad general concept, informing people who are potential buyers, sellers of real estate, investors, and also real estate agents. Going to be giving you guys some of my experience and anecdotes, and also tips and tricks, things that I've learned from other agents. And also it's going to be revolving around entrepreneurship, the topics of leadership, skills, business skills, and also every other episode, every even-numbered episode is going to be me interviewing a guest, someone who is a winner in their industry. It might be real estate, it might be public speaking, it might be any possible industry. Anyone who is a winner, who is succeeding at what they're doing, is a potential candidate to be a guest on this show, and I'll just be interviewing them, getting their wisdom to share with you guys. So this is something that I've wanted to do for a little bit now, and I have the opportunity to do so thanks to my awesome broker, Anthony Askowitz, here at RE/MAX Advanced Realty in Miami, Florida. So I'm actually in my office right now. We've created an incredibly awesome sound room here to create content, and so thank you to Anthony. He's actually going to be one of our guests and one of the first few episodes, so super excited for that. Already have a bunch of awesome guests lined up, so you know, it's going to be really fun. I look forward to bringing you guys this content. The plan is to release a new podcast every couple weeks, so definitely make sure that you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already, if this is your first video or otherwise, and definitely hit the thumbs up and ring the bell so that you get notified of the new videos. There's always a new thing to do, it seems, on YouTube. Pretty soon you're gonna have to, you know, subscribe, ring the bell, and peel the banana or something, you know. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, whichever one it might be, make sure that you subscribe as well, because this will be a regular podcast that I intend to do for a long time to come, all right? So reason I wanted to start a podcast is because I would do some kind of shorter videos on my Instagram channel, on my story. Had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, you know, basically, hey man, you should start a podcast. The type of content you're putting out is, you know, podcast worthy or whatever. And in addition, I wanted to kind of have a little bit more of a long form version of what I was doing and what I was saying in those sort of Instagram stories, which are, of course, a very short format. So by the way, my Instagram is @jake.miami. So go follow me there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, you know, all those things. I guess I'll probably put my social media in the description if you guys want to follow me and yeah, follow my story. So let me tell you guys a little bit about myself. I'll try to keep it short and sweet, but just to give you context of who I am, where I'm coming from, and why why I am where I am, why I am able to speak on the certain things that I'm able to speak on. So like I said, my name is Jake Fletcher. I'm from Miami, Florida. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, but I am a Miamian. I've lived here for over 13 years now, so when I go other places in the world, I am from Miami. So I love Miami. I love the 305. I love, you know, the culture. I love the people. I love just being here. You know, geographically, it's an amazing, incredible place, and in my opinion, it's one of the best places to live in the entire country, and one of the best cities in the world, all right? So lots of things that make Miami a great place, but that's not what I'm talking about today. I am in my second year of real estate, and before I was in real estate, I was in the music industry for about a decade. So I actually went to University of Miami. I studied music business there, and around the end of my education, going to school there, I started a band with my best friend, my brother, Y Diz. He's not actually my blood brother, but we grew up together and we're family. And so we started the band and things kind of started taking off. Kareen Stevie and basically some other members were contributing, but it was basically me, Diz, Kareen, and then that was the first iteration of the band. We later kind of shook things up, went through a period where we had to lose a couple people, then gain some people, and we gained Cito, who is our saxophone player. And basically, we were a national touring act. We traveled around the country playing large festivals and selling out venues and just crushing it and having more success in the music industry than most people have. Since I studied music business at UM, I was basically the business guy behind the band. I handled the marketing, the tour booking. I was the booking manager, the tour manager, the band manager, did like our accounting, business affairs, legal affairs, contract negotiations, communications between any other individuals, logistics, marketing, all kinds of stuff, right? And I was also the frontman, vocalist, and MC, along with Kareen Stevie, who was my co-MC, and like I said, Cito was on the sax, Diz was on the beats and synthesizers, and everyone is pretty much a multi-instrumentalist, multi-talented individual. Whether it was Kareen, who was a MC, lyricist, virtuoso, and incredibly amazing artist who made all of our art and content, or Cito, who was the sax. He played the flute, the synthesizers, piano, like multi-instrumentalist, and you guys get the point. Basically, our music was a mix of like electronic, funk, hip-hop, psychedelic, onstage theatrics and costumes, theatrical interludes, and definitely go check it out. Just search up Telekinetic Walrus on YouTube. That's the name of the band. Still in the band not like we broke up or anything, but I basically, when I turned 30, decided that I needed something different. Basically, my priorities in life kind of changed, okay? And this is a little bit what I wanted to talk about today in this episode. I wanted to tell you guys about the 3 hardest lessons that I ever had to learn, and they're also lessons that I'm still learning to this day, all right? But they were definitely things that I maybe thought I was handling but wasn't handling, or came to a new level of understanding of how to handle them. So I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit about that, because a lot of those, most of those lessons, I made that breakthrough during that process of deciding, do I continue with what I have been doing for the last 10 years and, play to and feed my ego of wanting to, to make it in the music industry? Or do I, recognize that things have changed, basically, that I have changed as a person, and that what I want in life is different than what it used to be, all right? So ever since I was 5 years old, I always knew that I wanted to be a performer. I knew I wanted to be a vocalist since I was literally 5 years old, and I jumped up on the top of a Little Tikes table at a neighborhood block party and lip sung REM's Losing My Religion in front of the whole neighborhood, in front of the whole street, with my brother on air drums and our neighbor friend on like air guitar. And that was the moment that I knew I wanted to be a performer. So I kind of was a little bit of an exception to the rule of, generally how people don't know what they want to do with their lives until they get much older. I literally, since I was 5 years old, was like, I know what I want to do. Right? And what I had always wanted out of that was I wanted to create music that affected people's lives in a genuine and deep way. And I wanted to make a living playing music, and I wanted to tour the country, and I wanted to play crowds of large proportions, huge crowds, right? So kind of my late 20s going into into turning 30, I was like having this difficult decision, this difficult time. I was very frustrated. I was like borderline depressed, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I had up to that point, such an amazing experience touring and playing shows and stuff like that. And, stories that you know, you can't make them up, you know. Experiences that, you know, most people will never have. And, you know, the majority of bands never even, you know, first of all, like break up right away, don't even make it to, you know, about 10 years of being around in existence. But also majority never even will make it on tour. Much less of those ones that do make it on tour, even fewer will actually be able to make money on tour and not, you know, bankrupt themselves. So we went on a bunch of national tours, a bunch of East Coast and regional tours here in the Southeast, and every single tour our metrics went up. Every single tour we made more money. Every single tour the crowds got bigger. You know, the show got better, and we were always pushing ourselves, right? And it was during that time of, you know, early kind of entrepreneurship and learning how to treat it like a full-time business and how to maximize our potential and maximize our efforts and stuff that I really kind of grew as an individual to who I am today in terms of being a business person and in terms of like just handling, you know, what needed to be done. Because when we'd be playing, you know, we'd have a 2-month tour, we'd be playing another show every night and have to drive through the night, you know, I'd be, you know, having a great time at the venue, but not, you know, drinking or anything like that so that I could drive us through the night, right? It was either me or Cito, the saxophone, driving through the night and getting to that next gig, you know? And a lot of people don't realize how stressful tour life is and how much it drains you physically, mentally, spiritually, and the music industry in general, the entertainment industry in general is a very draining thing. So we, you know, we had a decent amount of success, more than what most people get to, you know. We weren't making like, you know, $10,000 a show, but we were making, you know, in some cases, you know, thousands of dollars a show. I think the most that we ever made at a show, like in a weekend, touring, playing a festival, and then also selling merch because we had a screen printing setup in the warehouse where our studio was, so we would print our own merchandise. And I think one festival we made like over $5 or $6 grand between the merch and the show itself. And then most we ever made in a show was like around 11 grand, but that was split between a bunch of different bands. So our cut was, you know, I guess it was around, we ended up getting like 4 grand or something like that. But anyways, so we were making decent money, but it wasn't the type of money where you're saving money to buy homes and buy, you know, be able to live comfortably enough to keep progressing and investing in yourself, investing in your financial future, etc. When I got to 30, I realized that, you know, over the course of a year, kind of grappling with like, what do I do? I'm not happy. You know, I want to be able to buy income producing properties, investment properties, and have passive income coming in and still do my art and still, you know, enjoy my life and do things where, you know, traveling with my girlfriend and taking care of my family and stuff. And, you know, I kind of reached a moment where I was like, all right, like, you got to decide, dude. Like, do you continue to push because of your ego and because this is what you have told yourself for so long that you have to do? Or do you realize that your priorities have changed and you're miserable, you know? Because the only time at the end where I was really having fun was when I was on stage. And that was like, you know, 0.1% of my total time, you know? So not that I didn't enjoy like practicing and you know, being with my crew and, you know, doing the things that we needed to do to get ready to get on tour and all that, but it was stressful, you know? It was very stressful and it was work, you know? People think that you go on tour and you're just like balling out, having a great time, and you do have a good time and you do have, you know, incredible experiences and stuff like that, but you know, I always would say it's 24/7 work and play, work and fun. You know, 24 hours a day, you are on the clock, right? Even when you're sleeping, it's your job to be sleeping and getting enough sleep so that you can perform in the next show. Because if you don't, well, you know, what are you gonna do when you're on stage and your voice is all crackly because you can't sing because you didn't get enough sleep, or you have no freaking energy and you're not able to like amp up the crowd the way that you should be doing, right? what are you going to do? Right? So it's your job to be sleeping. It's your job to be waking up on time and getting fed and eating a nutritious enough diet so that you can maintain. It's your job to be places on time. There's a lot of responsibilities, and being kind of the tour manager, booking manager, and, handling all those things, it was a little like extra stress on me. I've kind of looked at it as like I was burning the candle on both ends and in the middle for like years at a time. So the stress kind of added up. I got to the point where I realized that my priorities had changed, and I decided, I was like, dude, this, I can't continue to be miserable and not enjoying this, and on top of that, I also realized a big, epiphany I had was, dude, I set out, I've accomplished everything I set out to do. I set out to make music that affected people's lives in a deep way. And we all of us, all four of us, have had people come up to us after shows and tell us that our music saved their life, or that, it got them out of a dark depression, or, a bad part of their life, or, it helped to enhance their life in some very real and meaningful way. So check on that, right? I set out to play, huge crowds. We played festivals with, crowds of like 10,000 plus people before, like a sea of people where you can't even see like the back of the crowd. So check on that too, and I set out to make a living off of my music, right? And be able to actually, sustain and go play shows and come back and have some money. Of course, I would have liked to have had more money, of course, but I sustained as a freelancing musician for almost a decade. And I also, too, in all honesty, was teaching music lessons. When I was here in Miami, I'd be teaching music lessons, freelance. And then when I'd go on tour, I'd be just playing shows. And then when I'd come back, after however long the tour was, I'd have to kind of get my private music clients back up again. So that created like this hamster wheel. But I did successfully, sustain. We'd come back from tour and I'd have enough money for, like a month or two, sometimes more, to like pay my bills and get my clients back up, and we also always invested back into the business. We were smart business people about it in that sense, and that's part of why we were able to grow and be successful and show up in cities where we'd never played before and have a sold out venue or a mostly packed venue and things like that. So, I could just go into, a whole podcast about my experience as a musician. But I think that, it's something I just wanted to lay out there so that I could talk about the larger subject today, which I wanted the first episode of the podcast to be about, because it's something I have been talking about to people in my life, for a little bit now, and it's something that I think is very important, which is the 3 hardest lessons that I've ever had to learn, all right? So, little cafecito. So, 3 hardest lessons I've ever had to learn are also 3 lessons that I'm still learning to this day, all right? So I'll start with number 3, and number 3 is stopping to enjoy life, all right? So many people, especially entrepreneurs these days, there's so much pressure, man. There's so much pressure. There's pressure from your family, pressure from your significant other. There's pressure from, work. There's pressure from internally from yourself, to achieve. Pressure that society puts on us, it's enough to give you anxiety, And I had anxiety, I realized, that I didn't used to have. And, I had like a pressing on my chest at one point, and that was when I realized, like, oh shit, I have anxiety, and I've never had anxiety in my life, which was crazy to me. So it's so normal for entrepreneurs and all kinds of people, not just entrepreneurs, but anyone, to always have this point of view where you're always focused on the next hurdle, right? Life is a series of problems to conquer. And once you hurdle one hurdle, your focus is immediately on the next one to hurdle, right? And there's always that continual process of jumping the hurdle, jumping the next and the next and the next hurdle, right? Well, dude, if you don't ever stop after one of those hurdles and take a moment to breathe and congratulate yourself and pat yourself on the back for a job well done, and take a look back at all that you have accomplished and think about where you've come from to where you are, and how much, that means to you, and what your goals are, and just really take a second, like they say, stop and smell the roses, right? These kind of cliche sayings are cliche for a reason, right? Because if you don't ever take a second to stop and enjoy life, then you're never going to stop and enjoy life. You're never going to enjoy. You're never going to, be able to have fun and actually, take a second, take a break from being so stressed out and being in that constant hurdle mode, So that was something that I learned sort of towards the end of that process, where I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Was I going to keep pushing the music, or was I going to, jump into real estate and, something else that I'm passionate about, that I love, and, that I wanted to have, investment properties and get into real estate, and have more financial freedom, and so I came to a realization of like, dude, I'd be on tour, and it would be, each gig was the hurdle, right? And it was like, after that gig is over, all right, pack up the merch, throw it in the van, and then here we go on to the next one, and like, it's easy to get stuck in that mode, and if I could go back and do it again, I would tell myself, if I could go back and tell myself then I would say, dude, don't get so pissed off at stupid shit. Don't get so upset about the little things. Laugh the little things off. I would have had a lot more fun with it in the moment. And little things that went wrong, or little things that stressed me out, I would have just like laughed it off and not thought it was such a big deal, because it would have been more important to me to be having fun in that moment, which in turn is going to make the other people around you have more fun as well. Right? And when everyone around you is having more fun and you're having more fun, then everybody kind of levels up the fun, right, to the next fun level, which is awesome. And it's important, because if you're not leveling up that fun, you're always either going in one direction. You're not ever truly stagnant. You're either declining or you're inclining, right? So if you're not having fun, then you're declining. You're heading towards a lull, right? And it's just such an important thing, man, to just stop, congratulate yourself, have an idea of like, all right, let's say you're a lawyer, okay? Once I get to the end of this case, or let's say you're in marketing, once we get to, X metric in our marketing campaign, or whatever it is, whatever business you're in, set a moment in that path of progress where you're going to say, all right, at that point of achievement in this thing that I do, I'm going to, take myself out to dinner for a nice dinner, or I'm going to, go on a little vacation, or I'm going to take a day off or something. Whatever it is, whatever the reward is, set a reward for yourself, right? And then when that time comes, take that time to really enjoy it and make the most out of it. Maybe you're gonna go out into nature and go hiking, or kayaking, or boating, or something, or do something with your family, or whatever it is, right? But set a goal. Once you reach that goal, right? Don't make it unattainable. Once you reach that goal, can be a little goal, can be a big goal. You can have different celebrations for big and little goals, right? Once you reach it, go do that thing that's going to make you happy. Make sure it's something that's going to bring you joy, right? Like, I love pizza. So whenever I hit my little goals, I'm like, all right, it's fucking pizza night. Let's go, or if it's a bigger goal, I'll say, look, I'm going to take Sunday off, and I'm going to do something fun, like go kayaking, or, go do something with my girlfriend, So make sure to stop and just smell the roses, man. Stop after each hurdle and just take a second to enjoy life and appreciate your existence. Otherwise, you will never enjoy or appreciate your existence. It's as plain and simple as that, man. So, number 2. This one was, up until recently, I thought it was number 1. And I'll say what number 1 is here in a second. But number 2 is being honest with yourself. It sounds simple, right? Just be honest with yourself, man. And it's another kind of cliche almost of like, oh, you know, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be true to yourself, you know, just be you, you know, right? And it gets thrown around so much that it kind of loses its meaning a little bit. And, you know, there are layers to it. There's levels to it. So for me, it was also around the same time that I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to keep pushing the music, or am I going to, you know, do something that I think is going to make me more happy in the near and long term, right? Give me some financial freedom, etc. And, you know, the ego is a hard thing to overcome. That's another cliche that gets thrown around a lot. Oh, the ego, the ego, the ego. And I almost try to not think of things in terms of ego as much as I can, because, you know, it's hard to define the ego. I feel like it's one of those things that it's very ethereal. It's very, you know, it's just kind of, it's hard to define. You know, what is the ego? What really is it, right? Yeah, we know the ego is essentially, you know, kind of being sort of selfish or thinking about yourself, you know, but it also can be, an advantageous thing sometimes, right? When it manifests in terms of being confident, right? And, you know, everyone has such a different interpretation of ego too. So that's why I try not to talk about things in terms of the ego so much, but in terms of just easy reference, you know, it was hard for me to get over my ego or get over myself in terms of like, what do I honestly think is going to make me happy? Right? What's gonna stop me from being miserable, right? What made me miserable was the fact that I was fucking poor, you know, and I couldn't even afford to go to a dentist. I couldn't afford sometimes to go out to eat or do little things to make myself, you know, feel good or whatever. I couldn't afford to take my girlfriend and I on vacations. I couldn't afford to go visit my family and stuff like that. You know, I was broke. I was a musician. I was like, you know, I was a broke-ass musician, you know, what do you want me to say, you know, and I was, at the same time, had been telling myself, like I said, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a performer, you know, so in my mind, that's what I had to do. That's what I had to achieve and ascertain in order to be happy. And I wasn't going to be happy until I reached the ultimate level of success, you know, making millions of dollars every year, you know, putting out my music and having fans, you know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans, playing the biggest festivals and the biggest stages, and, you know, putting out, you know, content that gets, you know, millions of views in like a week or whatever. And I didn't realize that, like, you know, at that time, like, I kind of subconsciously realized it, but I didn't really accept it, of like, you know, those aren't really things that make you happy. You can't do a thing and that thing will make you happy or make you a happier person. You can do something that will give you happiness in the moment, right? But experiences always fade. You know, things that happen to you, they eventually are in the rearview mirror, right? And then now you have something new in front of you, right? There's always another hurdle, right? So, you know, the things that I thought were gonna make me a happy person, I had to be honest with myself eventually and realize those things aren't gonna make me a happy person. Those are things that I think will bring me happiness overall. But what's really going to bring me happiness overall is to align myself with what I feel like is going to create a situation for myself where I have more opportunities to experience happiness and experience happy moments, right? So what I mean by that is, you know, being broke sucks, basically, and I didn't want to be broke anymore. I wanted to provide for my family, right? And so I wanted to be in a situation where I could do that, right? And I also realized, you know, doing something other than music doesn't mean I'm not a musician anymore. I'm gonna be making music till the day I die. You know, the intro song for this podcast, I made it, right? And the outro song, you know, and you know, I will go home sometimes and just for fun we'll make some beats and make some music and or play my guitar or whatever, you know. So I'll be a musician till the day I die, right? And music is something that brings me happiness, right? It's having music in my life is something that helps to make me a happy person, right? But the trade-off from, you know, trying to make it as a musician and ultimately, you know, being poor at the same time was not a beneficial trade-off, right? You know, the amount of success that you need nowadays as a musician to not be poor is incredibly greater than it used to be, because as a society we've decided that music isn't worth anything. We want our music for free. You know, we want the music to be streaming for, you know, $4 a month or whatever service, you know, that you have, and we don't want to pay for music anymore. You know, most people don't buy albums anymore. You know, we want everything to just be on demand and free, which I don't blame people for that, right? But that is something that has happened within the entertainment industry at large, that the people at the top kind of allowed to happen, or maybe not necessarily allowed to happen, but they didn't adapt to it in a way that kind of prevented it from happening, right? And also, of course, things like Napster and stuff didn't help as well. But I don't begrudge the progress of society, you know, and things like that. But we do have to, as a society, accept the fact that, you know, we've made it, you know, not necessarily harder than ever to survive as a musician, because you can survive, but we've made it harder than ever to be comfortable and have a career as a musician if you're doing something outside of the norm, right? If you're not doing something where you're like a pop artist or a studio musician, because what we were doing was like kind of, you know, we were pushing the boundaries a bit. We weren't your typical style, and we created a product that people loved and people wanted and people paid for, you know, but it was ultimately not something that was as easy to license out for publishing purposes, or something to have a broader commercial appeal, even though I think that there was some kind of commercial appeal there, especially later on in our content. I digress. So, you know, and on that note too of the whole making a, you know, career as a musician, I met people on tour who had music videos, you know, with hundreds of thousands and millions of plays, and when they go back home, they're driving Uber, you know, or they're like, you know, like I was, a music teacher, or, you know, some kind of other, you know, something in the gig economy, which is what we've created, where so many people are in gig jobs where they don't have full-time pay, they don't have benefits, health insurance, etc., and they're just working multiple gigs trying to just get through because they're a creative and they want that flexibility time-wise, which is great that that exists, but it's the reality that the gig economy, you know, makes it very tough for people to get out, to go from just subsisting and surviving to doing exceptionally well, right? Whereas, you know, the more traditional type careers and stuff like that, you can still easily like go to college to study law, get a job as a lawyer, and you know you're going to be doing, you know, at least X, you know, minimum salary, for example. Anyways, so being honest with myself was one of the hardest things that I ever have learned how to do, because also you think you're being honest with yourself sometimes, but we have so much internal bias and so many internal biases that it's hard for us to kind of to step out of that perspective and really analyze things in a objective way and say, okay, you know, here are the things that are important to me, here are the things that are making me feel, you know, shitty, and here are the things that I think are solutions to those problems that will help me to focus more on the things that are important to me and where I feel like I'm going in my life, right? So a good thing to do is to kind of like write it out, man. You know, do like one of those T-charts where you have like the pros and the cons, right? And say like, okay, for example, you know, say you're a paralegal right now. but you hate being a paralegal, right? And you're thinking about going back to school or doing something different. Make a pros and cons, like a T-chart, you know, pros of staying as a paralegal, the cons of staying as a paralegal, right? Pros of changing from doing that job to the job that you want to do. Let's say you want to go back to school to be a nurse. And then the pros of that, and then the cons of that, right? And weigh it out, you know? I'll do that, and then I'll put like a point system to it, where between, from 1 to 100, with 100 being the most of the most weight, the most importance, 1 being the least importance. I'll give each thing on my T-charts a grade of how important it is, right? Or how unimportant it is if it's a low score, right? And then I'll try to go 1 for 1, and have a similar amount of pros and cons, so it's not, too off balance. And then I will, tabulate the scores, and then, you don't have to necessarily make your decision based off the numbers off of that, but it gives you a metric, it gives you a data point, an analytical frame of reference of how you value all these, multifaceted parts of one versus the other, right? So that can be helpful, and that's something that I've done in the past and I continue to do. Being honest with yourself, man, is so freaking hard, and it's something that I still work on to this day, because even though I feel like I've reached a new level of ability to be honest with myself, and side note, honest with others too, which for me is not as hard because I'll be honest as hell with everyone. You get the same person who's on this podcast right now is the same person who talks to my clients, same person who talks to my girlfriend, to my parents, that would talk to the president or the Queen of England or whatever. I'm the same person all around. So honesty to others as well, if that's something that's tough for you. But honesty with myself is something I'm still working on, because even though I feel like I've reached a certain level, every day I realize that there's like minutia to it. There's different levels of like, realizing certain things that you can be honest with yourself about that aren't necessarily like the bigger picture stuff. Sometimes it's the little picture, the smaller things that are, still important because they make up the composite of the whole, right? They make up the whole picture. So it's not just the big stuff, right, that you got to be honest with yourself about. It's the little stuff too, Are you somebody who gets pissed off too much when you're driving and somebody cuts you off and that ruins your day, right? Are you neglecting certain relationships in your life? Are you neglecting your health? All these things. I could go on, but, think about, it's probably something's coming up in your mind right now of something that's a problem spot in your life that you need to do some soul searching and be honest with yourself about. And it can take time. Like I said, it took me like a year to be honest with myself. From the point where I've felt like, dude, I feel like shit about my life and where I'm at, to where I was finally like, okay, that's it. I got to make the decision. I got to rip the Band-Aid off, and I got to, step back from my role with what I'm doing with my band and in the music industry, and I got to change my gears and do something a little different to try to make some more money and not be so poor and be happier and be able to do the things I want to do. Okay, so take a second. Take a moment in your life, take a week, take a month, take a year, meditate, search your soul, meditate and focus on your heart, focus on your what's important to you, not other people and outside sources, what's important to you, and figure out what that is, figure out what's important to you, and figure out where you want to see yourself in the future, and be honest with yourself about the things that you need to do and the things that you need to stop doing in order to get there, okay? Number 1, the hardest thing that I've ever had to learn, and arguably I still haven't learned it very well, which is why it's number 1, and I didn't realize it was number 1, like I said, until sort of recently. Number 1 is dealing with stress, all right? So I have been recently kind of going through a little bit of a stressful time. Basically, I reached, a little ways back, I reached my 1-year anniversary of getting into real estate. And to be completely honest with you, because that's all I'm ever going to be on this podcast or anytime you see me, but to be completely honest with you, I was not where I thought I would be. And I'm still not right now where I thought I would be at this point in my real estate career after being in the industry for over a year, because of the amount of effort that I put in, and because I feel like I do a great job at what I do. I thought I was going to be already making, way more money than I am, and already be way more successful than I am right now. Not that I haven't had successes, but I thought I was going to be far ahead, okay? And that put this like underlying kind of like feeling of just stress, because I was not happy with what my achievements were up to that point, and not happy with where I was versus where I thought I would be, right? And it was I was like having kind of like a little internal pity party for myself because of that, right? And so that kind of set up this foundation of stress. And then when any like other type of like outside things would happen, it would amplify my stress level. So, let's say I had to book showings for a client, and there was 10 houses that I was going to go show them. They're a buyer, right? And of those 10 houses, only one of the agents picked up their phone. I would let that stress me out, and it still kind of stresses me out, which is why I say that I still haven't really learned this lesson. So basically people not being as on point would stress me out. The way people would drive sometimes would stress me out. Not being where I wanted to be would stress me out. All kinds of things, right? It's not as important what would stress me out as it just is the overall idea of dealing with stress, right? So even though I still, this is still something that I need to work on for sure, I definitely think that because I was going through this really stressful time, I started kind of turning inward and thinking about like, okay, dude, how do I deal with this? How do I overcome this? I talked about it with my coach, my broker, Anthony Askowitz, who I meet with on a weekly basis. He gave me some good tips and insight. One thing he said, because he's actually a cancer survivor, is he basically was like, dude, I think, he didn't say dude, but he said, stress gives you cancer. At the point in his life where he had to deal with that, he was very stressed out, and he feels like stress gives you cancer. And I don't think that he's the first person to make that declaration, and I believe that having too much stress not only gives you cancer, but can lead to other health problems. I had a hernia at one point in my life. And it was when I was touring and I was like super stressed out and letting myself get super stressed out, not stopping to enjoy the little victories, not being, honest with what was stressing me out and communicating to people in my life about that, because I have a tendency to bottle things up. Used to be worse than it is now, but I still kind of do it where I bottle things up, and that keeps everything in, like it causes an internal pressure where you just like want to explode, right? And so that, that kind of welling up of all these little stresses, and like I said, there's more than just those few that I named, but I'm not trying to like go into all those things. The point is, going through all that, I started to think about the things that I could do to counteract that stress, and things that I know from the past that have helped me de-stress. So I do think that stressing can give you health issues. So that's one catalyst or impetus to not be stressed out, is realizing like, dude, I don't want stress in my life because it's going to make me unhealthy. It's going to make me feel like shit. It's going to give me health problems that could be very real, life-threatening health problems, from heart disease, cancer, hernia, whatever, you name it, right? The body has a funny way of showing our deficiencies, and that's not something I want, right? So realizing like, dude, I don't want stress. I don't want stress. Just saying that as a mantra, like, I don't want stress in my life, right? Every morning when I wake up now, I don't want stress in my life. I don't want it. I have no interest in stress. Stress doesn't help me out, right? So that's one kind of concept that I think is beneficial to keep in mind. So I'll just name a few other things that I think have helped me out. Exercise, you know, definitely having like a daily, if not near daily routine of getting exercise, whether it's you know, from running and working out hard and like lifting weights, pumping iron or whatever, to just like simply stretching and maybe doing some push-ups or like lifting a few weights or something, you know, can help out a lot. So that's one for sure. Sleep. Oh my God, dude, get some sleep. You know, you might be in your 20s and think, you know, you don't need sleep and you can function on 3 hours of sleep, or, you know, you don't have to sleep every night. You can pull all-nighters multiple days in a row, but you don't realize how much, you know, speaking from somebody who did that for almost a decade, you don't realize how much that lack of sleep has a cumulative reaction to your body and to your health and to your stress levels and to your happiness. All right. So whether it's 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, get sleep. You know how much sleep that you need. All right. Let me just put it that way. You know what the sweet spot is. Be honest with yourself. Okay. Number 2, be honest with yourself about how much sleep you need. Okay. And make sure that you prioritize it and get that sleep every night. One way to make sure you do that is to have a routine, right? So like right now, when it gets to 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, I'm starting to wind down. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm, you know, doing the things that I need to do in order to get into bed, you know, and try to be asleep by 10 o'clock, right? That way I can wake up at 5:30, get my 7.5 hours of sleep, which for me is the sweet spot right now at this point in my life, and I'm good to go, all right? So the third one is meditation, all right? When I was 15 years old, shout out to Gray Bashew, who gave me the book by Dan Millman, The Journey of or The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and then the second edition, or second installment, or the sequel, is The Journey of the Peaceful Warrior. But The Way of the Peaceful Warrior opened up my mind to the idea of meditation, and that process when I was 15 years old helped me to expand my mind to kind of become who I am and realize who I am, how I fit into the fabric of humanity, and what I'm all about in terms of like the grand scheme of things. Like, you know, who am I? How do I fit into this world? How do I view myself? What's my identity in this world, right? And kind of just also gaining better control over my mind. So meditation, and then, so to be honest, I kind of stopped meditating for years. And then in the last like year and a half, I've reinstituted meditating almost every single morning. It's part of my morning routine, which I'll probably do another podcast at some point about my morning routine. But basically, it's one of the first things I do every morning. I meditate, and I will usually have headphones in to block out any outside noises. And I'm listening to like binaural beats, which is like 432 hertz, 528 hertz, you know, those kind of different frequencies, which are, I'm not going to go into what that is. If you don't know what binaural beats are, definitely go Google it. But it's something that I'm not a very esoteric type guy. Like, you'll never catch me reading like a astrology chart. But one thing that is a little more on that side of things that I do think is real to an extent is basically the 432 hertz theory, the frequency of the universe, essentially binaural beats, because sound and music is the only art that physically moves the human body, physically moves the cells, the molecules in our body, right? So when a sound wave is produced from a speaker, the force of that sound wave undulating through the universe actually moves our cells. That's why when you stand in front of a subwoofer, you can feel the bass moving your body. You can feel it in your body, right? So binaural beats is something I do believe in. I think it's awesome. Breathing exercises. I used to spearfish, and I would do counting up and counting down exercises, or pranayama, which is like a yogic breathing exercise. Those will help out a lot, especially midday. If I'm sitting at my desk and something stressed me out, I'll just close my eyes and just do some breathing exercises real quick. So hanging out with friends definitely helps a lot. just hanging out, man. Just like go see your buddy that you haven't seen in a while. Go see one of your friends that you haven't hung out with in a while, and just chill. You know, bring over like some food or something, or you know, if you drink beer or whatever, a bottle of wine, and just hang out and just chill. You know, can really help out a lot to de-stress you. And they're also, you know, if it helps to talk to your friend and, you know, to talk things out, that can help out a lot. For me, talking isn't the best because it's good for me long-term to kind of get things off of my chest. And it can, if I really have stuff bottled up and I need to get off my chest, it can help out a lot. But in the short term, it like will work me up, and I like raises my blood pressure because I'm like talking through all these freaking things that are stressing me out, and I get like, you know. And so it can be a catch-22 for me. But if it helps, it helps. So if it helps you out, then do it. Having a timed out daily schedule is something that has really helped me in my life, because when you have every moment of your day timed out, it makes it so that there's no time to sit there and think about how stressed you are really, because there's something that you need to be doing at all points during the day, right? And when you're busy and you're active and you're doing things, you're making progress and you're getting things done, it's a lot harder to stop and be stressed about stuff, okay? So having a timed out schedule, that's also part of my daily morning routine. After I get to a certain point in my morning routine, after I do like my calisthenics before I go for a run, I literally sit down for like 2-3 minutes and I just time out my day. You know, I'm gonna go shower, I'm gonna prepare my meal for the day for lunch, I'm gonna get dressed, etc. That's gonna be from, you know, 7 o'clock to whatever, you know, to 8 o'clock. I'm going to read from 8 to 9. I'm going to, you know, XYZ, right? And I have my whole day timed out, even lunch, even dinner, everything. Whole day until I go to sleep is timed out. That's something that is not just super beneficial in terms of getting more done, but it helps you to not be as stressed out because you're not stopping and worrying about things that are stressing you out as much. But it's not totally foolproof, but it does help. Being willing to say no or decline doing things that are not important, that are expectations of other people, right? So kind of learning to either, like when somebody asks you to do something, and learning how to just be like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that, you know. Empowering, super empowering, first of all, but also it's less stuff for you to have on your plate, because a lot of times when you're stressed out, it's because you have a bunch of stuff on your plate, you know. And also too, you know, doing things that aren't important to you sucks, you know, like things that don't matter, and you take on these things that somebody else wants you to do because it's important to them, but it's not important to you, and you're stressed out there sitting like, man, I can't believe I'm fucking doing this shit, you know, and like it's not even important to you. So just learn how to be like, look, this is already being taken care of. I appreciate your input, you know, or hey, you know, this is actually something I'm not able to do, you know. That's it. And it's empowering, and it helps you to not be as stressed out. So that's awesome. So yeah. And on another note too, not drinking alcohol or taking drugs, okay? This is a mixed subject, because for me, I'm not somebody who's ever had a addictive personality. I know there's people out there that it's harder for them to not, you know, to smoke or drink or whatever their vice might be. But, you know, alcohol is, in small quantities, can be a stimulant. And just like drinking a lot of caffeine or stuff like that, you have a stimulant like that, it can give you more anxiety and amplify your stress. And of course, when taken in large quantities, alcohol is a depressant, and it can, you know, lead to like a kind of mental downward spiral, which is not good. Also, you know, smoking, whether it's smoking cigarettes or also weed. I mean, cigarettes is just, you know, it's 2020. What are you doing smoking cigarettes? Stop. But if it's smoking weed, you know, there was a time in my life where I smoked weed, and I realized that it gave me anxiety, you know, and when I was younger, I used to smoke for years, and I don't smoke anymore, because I came to a point where I realized that it was amplifying my anxiety and making me more stressed out. And ultimately it wasn't healthy. It also made me, contrary to most people, like will fall asleep, I would like be awake. I couldn't sleep. So I've like realized like, dude, how many hours of my life have I lost, you know, of sleep just for wanting to feel this sensation that is a fleeting feeling that doesn't help me in the grand scheme of things, you know? So that was another, being honest with myself, and also lack of sleep adds to stress as well, right? So, you know, I had to kind of realize like, dude, okay, it's not serving me anymore, no more, right? And great decision. Wished that I had made it earlier in my life, or not necessarily wished, but it made me wonder like, where would I be if I had stopped this like 5 years ago or something. So now it's been already years at this point, and I don't miss it at all. So another thing that can help out is go for a walk outside, dude. Go get some sun, vitamin D. We're human beings, like we come from nature. Being in nature makes us happier, you know. Take off your shoes and walk around outside your house in the grass with your shoes off. Connect to the earth. You know, it's not a hippie thing to do. It's a natural thing to do. We're human beings. You know, we've only for a very small part of our entire history of being human beings even had shoes anyways. And, you know, getting that sunlight, smelling the fresh air, you know, connecting to the earth. These are things that are innate to us and will help to bring you a level of calmness, all right? Also, last thing that I'll say about things that I've learned that have helped me to de-stress is just taking a second, take a break. You know, if you're really stressed out, you know, go like lay down with your eyes closed in the dark for a half an hour or an hour, and, you know, maybe put on some binaural beats and like just de-stress for a second, do some breathing exercises. You're not necessarily meditating, but just like take a break. You could go, even if it's like, you know, watch some YouTube videos on my channel, or, you know, if you want to watch you know, another channel, that's fine, you know, but then watch mine afterwards. Just kidding. Or not. But go, you know, read a book or call your mom or your dad, you know, because you don't call them enough anyways, and just like relax, take a break from whatever you're doing, work-wise or whatever it is that's stressing you out. Or that's within that context of the stressful situation. If you're having a fight with your significant other, you know, get out of the house for a second and go see one of your friends, or, you know, go like have a meal by yourself, you know, or just do something outside of that situation that is in that stressful context, and just get out of it for a second, you know, and that can really help out. I know for me, you know, one thing I'll do if I'm here at work is I'll just like put my headphones in, put on like some relaxing music, whether it's like classical music. I love Chopin, by the way, and Debussy, or, you know, maybe some chill hop, you know, like beats, or binaural beats. I'll just like put on my headphones and just like sit there with my eyes closed for a second, and just listen to this calming music and just breathe and focus on my breath. And that'll help me to be, you know, to bring my stress from like here to right here. You know, there's maybe still a little ways to go, but it helps me to relax for a second. Actually, last thing I'll say to this, because this is probably the hardest part for me personally of how I still need to get better at dealing with stress, is learning to not give so much of a shit about stuff that's outside of my control, or the things that ultimately are like little things, you know, like if somebody else sucks at their job, or if somebody else does something that they're wrong or don't know what they're talking about, but I know what you know the truth is or whatever, instead of worrying about conveying to them the thing that they don't know, just let it ride, dude. Just let it slide and don't worry about it. And just realize, like, man, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to help me out to, A, to teach this person what they don't know, or B, to worry about the fact that they are saying something that's not true, or the fact that they suck at their job, or if somebody cuts me off in traffic, or, you know, whatever it is, whatever it is that is like a momentary thing that happens that, you know, will stress me out. Learn not to worry about it so much if it's a little thing, you know. And most things that stress you out, you will realize, and I have realized and am realizing more every day, are little things. You know, the big things are not every day. It's not every day that you get told that your, you know, mom has cancer or something, or that your, you know, dog died or something, you know, those big moments of like life change are rare. You know, most things that are stressful are, you know, on the day-to-day basis are very like insignificant things in the grand scheme of life and the universe, right? So realize the place that those stressors have in that macroscopic picture, the grand scheme of things, and just stop to like ask yourself before you let something ruin your day if that's something you're still going to be pissed off about in a year from now, or 5 or 10 years from now, or on your deathbed. Are you still going to look back on that and be like, that asshole that cut me off that one time? You're not going to be upset about it still. So why be upset about it now? Why let it ruin your day now? Doesn't make sense, all right? So with that, I think that's good. I think this, you know, I've said enough here on this episode. So to recap, number 3, stop to enjoy life, right? Take a second to enjoy and celebrate the little victories. Number 2, be honest with yourself. Search your soul. Take the time to really figure out what's important to you and what's going to bring you more happiness and put you in a situation where you have greater opportunity to be happy and be a happy person and have a happier existence, okay? Number 1, learn how to deal with stress better. It's tough, man. We're human beings. It's a tough thing to do, but you got to do it if you want to, you know, enjoy your life better and have a greater impact on people and, you know, really just have a better life, you know, plain and simple. So with that being said, if this is your first video or your first podcast, make sure to subscribe. FletcherGroupRE.com is my website. @Jake.Miami is my Instagram, and I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you did, go ahead and thumbs up, give me a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform, iTunes or whatever. Share it if you think that it's something that someone you know will enjoy, and I'm looking forward to the next one, man. We got some great interviews with people, and you know, every even podcast is going to be an interview with somebody who's awesome, a winner in their industry. Or and also every odd-numbered episode is going to be like this, maybe not as long, but it's going to be me talking about something that I think is, you know, an important topic. This one's a little bit longer because it's something I've, you know, I have a lot to say about it right now because it's something a lot of stuff I've been going through over the last like year and a half, 2 years or so, a little bit more, maybe last like, you know, year and a half to 2.5 years. And so it's something that I have a lot to say about right now. And I hope that this video brought you guys some value. The Jake Fletcher Show podcast in the books, number 1. That's it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.